In 1,000 feet, use the right two lanes to keep right.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You're watching Prepare to Go There. This is a daily coaching journey for friends and leaders alike who want to better lead themselves and stay focused on the future. My name is Peter, and it has been a joy and a privilege to go on this extended coaching journey with you. We are on episode 81, if you can believe it, and it's going to be an awesome week. We've got a big topic to tackle together, and I want to get into it right away. Hang tight with me just a second. I'm getting a little bit of lag on my side, but bear with me. I'm pretty sure it will even out. And so welcome to the Future Frontier. If you're new here, I want to explain the why. You know, it's my experience and observation that most people don't know how to lead others into a better future before they learn how to lead themselves there first. And so I'm so grateful for a lot of people adding their voice and their value to the leadership conversation. But we have to focus on self-leadership. That's the ability to lead yourself first. So there's a lot of attention on the public side of leadership, and that's cool. But we need just as much, if not more, attention on the private side, the personal side of leadership. It's kind of like the roots of a tree. That's where the growth is happening underground. And if you want to, reach further, you're going to have to dig deeper in the process. I want to say hi and welcome. So great to see each of you on. Joshua, appreciate you. Always getting me fired up with the encouragement. And so that's what today is about. Prepare to Go There is a call to action to help you lead yourself and stay focused on the future. And so if this resonates with you, I want to give you a personal invitation. Join the email community. I call it the Future Friends. I want to get your future some more friends, people that are going to help you, encourage you, and go the distance with you. Once a week, I send out an email on Fridays with a roundup, as I call it. It's really a bundle of all of the coaching content for that week. And this week is going to be extra good because we're going to be talking about something that is going to help each of us, all of us, level up for sure. So join the Future Friends. I'll share a gift with you at the end, and I'll give you some more details to get involved here. One more thing I can mention here before we begin with the content is the Future Friends will get the info and incentives for the coaching projects that I've been working on with you in mind. I am so excited. We're in Q4. So, this is the time to really double down, to finish goals, to look ahead into the future. And this really is prime time for Future Friends. Q4 is literally my favorite time of year because you get, good food, hanging out with family and friends during the holidays. Q4 is when my birthday happens. And so I'm always like, leaning in and asking the Lord for vision and direction around my birthday. And Q4 is the time where we are leaning forward. We're looking ahead. Now, I think it should be a lifestyle, but this is a perfect opportunity to map out 2022. I don't think it's too early to get started on 2022. And so we want to, be explaining how to do that later. And those are some of the projects that I'm really passionate about, helping friends, helping leaders to lead themselves and stay focused on the future. And to me, this is not only about just, the tactics and the strategies. This is about your hope, and hope always stays future focused. And if you're looking at a future that doesn't have hope, then you're looking at it the wrong way. And so I believe that if you have wisdom, if you have strategies, if you have relationships that can help you, you're going to have a whole new outlook. You're going to look out with hope, and you're going to have a not just a helpless approach to life, you're going to have a more helpful approach to life. You're going to be empowered, you're going to be a strength and not a burden. You're going to be one who is giving value away, and you can't fake that. And so we want to be putting in the work today. We want to be doing the necessary, unnoticed preparation. So that way, when we show up ready. We show up to the opportunities ready. We show up to the opposition ready. We're not getting, caught off guard. We've been going through that patient preparation, and it really has been, um, it really has been a gift to have this time every day that we have downtime. Man, this is a gift that we get to be stewarding our time well. We get to enjoy these amazing relationships in our life, and we get to make the most of every day. I'm not about procrastinating your joy, your purpose into the future. I'm all about identifying the future right where you are and making choices with the ripple effects in mind. And so I'm so excited. Just all that to say, I'm pumped about quarter four. I'm pumped about these coaching projects that I've been working on with you in mind. One proof of concept that worked really well was we hosted a online leadership mastermind. It was so much fun. We pulled together about 9 different friends who are all leaders, and they're just crushing it in different spaces. One friend was doing screenwrite for a major, television studio. Others are in ministry. Others are doing entrepreneurship. Um, many of them, are in awesome family seasons in their life. So it was just really cool to kind of pull together those masterminds. And I want you to know we're going to be getting another round going. And I'm kind of working through the logistics of how, to do it, whether it's multiple rounds or just kind of open it up more webinar style. But I would love to do that again before the end of the year. And there's also some projects that I'll be launching, announcing at that time. So anyways, this is kind of the journey, and I like to share life updates along the journey. Um, so that is that. Okay, let's get into today's conversation. Don't sink your ownership. I am doing a play on words today, but I was thinking about that. Man, ownership is so important. Ownership it's a mindset. It is a empowering approach to life, and I want to emphasize the importance and the impact of ownership as a mindset. And it really does come down to how much are you willing to own? How much are you going to own? Are you going to own all the opportunities in front of you? Are you going to own all of the challenges that come with them? Are you going to backpedal, or are you going to advance? And so when you take ownership for yourself, including the way that you're going to organize your time each day. That's a big part of taking ownership. Take ownership of your time. And it's, I'm a student of productivity. I'm a student of a lot of different leadership best practices. I don't really go with time management as much as I do just time mapping. And I'll explain the difference later. But taking ownership of your time is so important. And, uh, and that's one of the first areas that ownership shows up, because a lot of us, if we're not aware, we're actually making excuses for where our time is going, how much time we have, what we do with that time. And it's normally one of the first kind of, what is it, smoking guns, so to speak, if someone has a more disempowered approach. But if you're really serious about becoming helpful, not just feeling helpless, if you really want to get ahead, and not just always feel behind, then taking ownership on a very personal and a very practical level. I literally feel like this was such a game changer for me when I just kind of changed my mindset, and I started being a little more of a grown up, a little bit more of an adult, a little bit more of a leader. And I said, hey, I feel like I have this calling to be a leader. Might as well start with myself. And I heard this quote. It's very funny. But Craig Rochelle, who's a leader and a pastor, he says, the most difficult person to lead is yourself. And that's so true. So basically, if you can put in the work today and inspire you to to follow you in a sense, then everybody else that you're called to lead, is it's going to be easy. So enjoy the journey and let's start taking ownership. Organizing your time each day is one of the ways you can take ownership. Another way is the way you're going to strategize your projects and your commitments each week. And so that's kind of zooming out just a little bit more, and you're focused on all the things that are going on, all the different fronts of your life. I call it multifaceted focus. And this is where you're strategizing how it's all going to work together on time. And when you actually take ownership for those two things and others, whether that's your your attitude, your gratitude, your your relationships, your results, just you look at yourself, examine yourself first. At first, it's going to be a painful reality. It's going to be a wake up call. It's going to be more of a rude awakening before the great awakening. But it's important that we have that humility and that intentionality, because here's what you're going to realize, and this is crazy. It blows my mind away. You actually have way more power than you realize. You actually have way more influence than you admit. And when you get into that defeated frame of mind, you basically are just playing the victim, and you're lashing out. And I talked about that with cage rage. But when you start realizing how much empowerment you have, you have to take responsibility for that. And you can use that or you can lose it, but it is up to you. Now, we don't have power over other people, right? We have power over ourselves. We have the choice to lead ourselves, and then we get to lead others by example. We get to inspire other people, and we get to spark that empowerment in them as well. I mean, how crazy would it be if you're going through this personal renaissance of realizing that you have all of this um influence and intentionality for your life, and then you don't pay that forward to other people? No, it doesn't work like that. So a truly empowering culture is where everybody, all levels of leadership, are growing in self leadership at the ground level, at the personal level. Now, that's crazy because it's actually a compliment What I just said is a compliment that you have more power than you realize. You have more empowerment than you realize. You actually get to make decisions about your values, about your worldview, about the way you're going to invest your time versus spending your time or wasting your time. You actually have the empowerment to say, hey, I don't have to stay here, live here, be that way. I can grow, right? I can change. I can think differently. I can get help. I can find help. I can reach out. Like, you have so much more options in a sense. You have so much more empowerment than you realize. And that is a compliment to you, but if you do nothing with it, and it is possible, then nothing will get done. And that is the sobering reality. And there are so many people, they phase out of a level of age, or we could say immaturity, and they don't realize that they've actually crossed an invisible line where they are now more responsible, because to whom much is given, much is required. And they don't realize that they've crossed this invisible line. And oh, yeah, now you have to really lead yourself. And there are different flashpoint moments. There are, decision points in our life where we kind of wake up to responsibility and we say, we got this. And it's not prideful at all. It's humbling. To whom much is given, much is required. But it's designed, this empowerment is designed to grow us, and then use that freedom, use that responsibility in service of others. I have a stellar quote. I actually have a few quotes today, but I want to just kind of keep moving through the content, and then I'll share it with you. But this is so incredibly important that we can identify this, because the conversation around ownership is not always out in front, right? It's not always in your face. And the sobering thing is, if you do nothing, it's possible that nothing will get done. Okay. If you do nothing, it's possible nothing will get done. The default of every day is delay and decay, but you have the intentionality, the creativity, the productivity to make time redemptive. You and I get to redeem the time. We get those opportunities, and we have to own those opportunities with hope, with faith, with courage, with resilience, with honor, with virtues that are transcendent, that are going to help us overcome the challenges in front of us. And I just want you to like feel equally like awesome and accountable at the same time, because that's kind of what I'm feeling. I feel pretty encouraged, but I also feel pretty accountable. Wow. In fact, the night before I married my wife, Sarah Joy, the Lord just impressed this on my heart. It was real. It was one of those small voice moments. And he said, Peter, the kindest thing that you can do for your wife moving forward is lead yourself. Because when you lead yourself, you're going to become a strength to your wife and not a burden to your wife. And man, that blew me away, because my wife is amazing. I mean, my wife is she's empowered. She's, creative. She is a girl boss to the max. And it could be easy, just to let that kind of overcompensate for things that I don't want to do, or that I'm not good at, or whatever. But man, hearing that from the Lord, making that personal and saying, okay, this has been the journey I've been on for a while, but wow, this really hits home. Now I have a why worth working on, working towards. And so I want to use the metaphor of ownership like a boat, like a real ship that you are going on. Okay, so there's a book. It's written by a guy named Jocko Wilkins, and I read it. It's called Extreme Ownership. I've read it. I recommend it. Let me see if I have it on the shelf. The thing is, the thing is that Sarah Joy organizes these books. She color codes. Oh, here they are. Perfect. Okay. So I took the cover off, so it matches. But here it is, right here. Is that right? No. Boom. All right. So it's called Extreme Ownership. It is a great read. It will challenge you. It will stretch your thinking. And the author, it's kind of two guys. Thanks, Sarah. The author was in the military, and he was like super deep. He did, operational combat in Iraq, and then he did SEALs training. And so this is like man's man, Marine hoorah kind of guy. And he says he wrote the book Extreme Ownership. And here's a quote from the book. He said, "Leaders must own everything in their world. There is no one else to blame." Leaders must own everything in their world. Now, you may say, "Oh, poor you, poor leader. It's always your fault." But the moment you blame other people and the moment you lash out in criticism and slander and defense, right? The moment you kind of bow up and buck and you kind of get this like arrogant, prideful, "I'm not the problem," as if you're like totally immune, you kind of lose points. But I don't understand how this all works, but I've just learned that when you go low, there's help, there's grace, there's empowerment waiting for you at, even if you're not, you don't have to always like dive under the bus, but there's something about humility, and there's something about taking ownership for you, and not, and just making sure that your heart is staying in the right place. You really do become unstoppable in your growing, because someone who's always willing to grow and always willing to move forward, that person becomes unstoppable. So, um, with that in mind, I'm starting a series of conversations today. It's going to go through the whole week, and it's going to be about developing a mindset of personal ownership. And this is going to involve themes like empowerment and stewardship, but I want to just really focus on that word ownership. Sarah Joy and I are now homeowners, and we love it, but it's a totally new mindset, because whenever we're living in an apartment, we were there and enjoyed it, and there were like amenities and it was cool. And if something broke, you just call somebody up and they'd help you fix it. But now, if something breaks, you got to fix it. You got to figure it out, or you got to pay up for it. So, I mean, you just feel everything a little bit differently. You approach things differently. And so an owner mindset is a distinctive between someone who's going to settle and plateau in life and someone who wants to keep pioneering and, go into the future. And so I want to use that word as a metaphor, ownership, right? You're on the sea, you're on a boat, and there's this quote. Oh, yeah, Jocko Wilkins. There's the quote. Let me get back on track here. Leaders must own everything in their world. There's no one else to blame. Okay, then here's the big idea for the whole week. An ownership mindset can take you far. Man, it can take you so far in life. It can take you so far in your leadership, in your family, in your work. An ownership mindset will take you so far, as long as a counterfeit doesn't take you under. So we want this ownership to take us far, and we want to be mindful of the counterfeits that would try to take us under. So here's a quote: "An entire sea of water cannot sink a ship unless it gets inside it." All right. Think about the power of that. The ship is designed to go through deep waters, unprecedented places, going through the storms, and it can handle all of that. The entire sea can't even sink this thing unless the water begins to get inside of that boat, that vessel. I'm inspired by Jesus. I think he's amazing. And he said, "Hey, the enemy has no part of me." I think that's a beautiful example, really, of the reality and the substance of what we're talking about here. But for us, and let me go back to that quote: an ownership mindset can take you so far as long as a counterfeit doesn't take you under. So we want to be super cognizant, super aware of those counterfeits. What are the counterfeits that could sink the ownership? What are the counterfeits in our thinking? What are the limiting beliefs? What are forms of unbelief that could really start to deteriorate our ownership, get inside of us and pull us down and sink that ownership mindset? That's why this week we've got to waterproof our ownership mindset. You've got to reinforce this mindset. You have to develop it. You have to make it personal. You have to make that resolution and that commitment. I'm going to go far, and I want this ownership mindset to take me far, and I'm not going to let a counterfeit take me under. So let's look at these, because this is what we're going to be talking about this week. Here are the 4 counterfeits that can take your ownership under. These are the 4 counterfeits to an owner mindset that can sink it. They will absolutely sink the ownership. The first one is entitlement. Entitlement. Man, if that thing starts to creep in, if that thing starts to, um, pick up water inside your ownership mindset, it will sink. It's not good. Entitlement says, I shouldn't have to work. I shouldn't have to work. It feels insulted and offended that it should put in work, that it should sacrifice. It expects the rewards without the sacrifice. Laziness. I really want to explore this. I'm not saying I'm the expert. I just want to explore this. I think this is super interesting to me. How are these mindsets counterfeits? Because if, a counterfeit actually looks valuable at first, it's not until after some closer examination you see that it's so bad or that it's worthless. And so for some reason, we can let this stuff in our thinking. We can let this stuff into our value system if we're not careful, because there are some aspects of this that help us, or they look appealing, or it looks like it's stroking stroking our ego a little bit. And laziness is one of those things. Laziness says, I don't want to work. I don't want to work. I don't want to work. And it actually feels like you're on vacation all the time. It's like, I don't want to work. It's fine. And man, that is so good. I was writing all the content for this week, and this is going to be such a good week. I'm so excited about it. But laziness is different than entitlement. Entitlement is different than procrastination. Procrastination is different than denial. And so we don't want to be, unaware. We don't want to just kind of look at this stuff very casually at a surface level. We want to understand what these mindsets look like, so that way we can reinforce and waterproof that ownership mindset. Procrastination. I love this. Procrastination says, I do want to work. Isn't that funny? Procrastination actually wants to work. It just wants to work tomorrow. Procrastination says, no, that's a great idea. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to work out. I'm talking to myself here. I definitely want to, talk to that person and coach that person and work on that project. I do want to do the work. I just want to do it tomorrow. Ouch. Got some water coming in. There's some water coming in. So we got to catch it. And it's more than just getting the water out of the boat or dealing with one instance or one event at a time. It's also about waterproofing the ownership, waterproofing and reinforcing the right mindset, building it out really strong so that way we can go through anything. And then the last one is the worst. Okay. I will tell you they're all bad, but the last one is the worst. And it's because it is silent. Denial is a silent threat. Okay. It's not talking at you all the time. Denial says, I am putting in the work when you're really not. Denial says, I am putting in the work. This is where you think you're actually taking ownership. This is where you actually think that you're doing everything you can. This is where you actually say, I don't understand why there are things breaking down, things not working, things I'm frustrated with, things I'm sad about, things I'm mad about, things I'm, fired up about, and it's still not my fault. Really? There's nothing that you could personalize here? There's nothing you could grow in here? No, I just don't understand. It is the hardest thing for me to understand because there's absolutely no way that I've been missing this. I've literally been doing the work the whole time and I'm still not seeing the results. Okay. So we'll have to unpack that later. I want to reference a recent live stream, a recent conversation. It was Prepare to Go There 79. I talked about cage rage. So this is really a continuation of the cage rage thing. Cage rage is the idea that people rage when they feel trapped. When they feel trapped in their job, they feel trapped in their relationships, they feel trapped in their state of life or their emotional whatever. They feel trapped, and so they begin to lash out. They lash out because they feel trapped. It also applies in the reciprocal. People will also lash out if you are not trapped. They want you to be trapped because that's where they are. They are also trapped. They are also disempowered. They are also operating off of that helplessness. And so they want you to be there with them. Why aren't you, in the cage with them? And so then they can lash out at that as well. And there's something super profound kind of in this story. I referenced it at that episode, but I talked about the first two brothers, Cain and Abel. And Cain had cage rage. I mean, this is like textbook cage rage. He was lashing out at his brother, and it wasn't even his brother's fault, man. And when the Lord comes to him, he says, basically, I'm paraphrasing, he says, bro, why are you mad? Why are you so mad right now? And that's going to be super important when we're reinforcing and kind of waterproofing this ownership mindset. You have to be aware of what's going on in your headspace, what's going on in your heart. You have to be bringing that up, talking about it openly with your spouse, with your close, your inner circle, your mentors, and most importantly, in prayer. And you have to say, Lord, search me, examine me. We did a whole week on just self-examination. But now we're going to kind of move past that and really reinforce the positive, which is ownership. And I want you to examine, why do you feel so mad? Why do you feel so helpless? Why do you feel so frustrated? Why do you feel so depressed? Why do you feel so anxious? And Be honest about what's going to happen next, because when you take ownership, when you really take ownership of where you are, then you can begin to see a path to where you want to be. So the time to take ownership is counterintuitive. The time to take ownership is not when you're taking ownership of the credit, okay? It's when everything feels like it's falling apart. Everything is, not going the way you want. You're going through it. It's a super inconvenient call to action, right? But it is humbly answering that call that will give you the empowerment and the freedom that you're looking for. So, waterproof your ownership so that way you are prepared for these counterfeits before they start creeping in. Now, why are we talking about this now? Because we're all about prepare to go there. We're all about a lifestyle of preparation. So, waterproof your ownership before you go through a storm. Like, you don't have to wait until you get knocked over by entitlement, laziness, procrastination, or denial or something else. Don't wait. And then you got to like patch, your thinking process up. Like, start doubling down now. Start doing the work now. Start making decisions that you're going to take ownership and that you're going to be moving forward. So, number one, like I said, figure out why you're upset in the first place. Start asking yourself that honest question, because you might be projecting something that people don't even know about, that they don't even realize that they're a part of this issue. And most of the time, we're unwilling to even go face to face and talk to people. And so now we're like making more time, more room for the wrong counterfeit mindsets to creep in and like build forts, and then it's even harder to break them down. And then you get in front of them face to face, and then it feels like an all out war. So don't do that. Look at the mirror and get help to kind of diagnose what's going on, why you're upset. And what I have found, I'm just telling you because I want to help you, I want to encourage you. What I have found is whenever you feel helpless, you think hopeless, and you're like, what's the point? And there's always, I'm telling you, there's always hope. There's so much hope. There's so much hope. It's like there's more hope than sky. There's so much blue sky. Look around at the blue sky. You'll see it. Oh my goodness, this is so extravagant. This is so generous. There's so much blue sky up here. I mean, you just keep going and going and going. It never ends. There's so much hope. And yet, for some reason, if you get bogged down by this narrow, view of how everything's messed up and wrong, you don't have to live there. You don't have to stay there. All right. Look for areas that maybe you've left open for other people to overreach your own sense of responsibility. Look for areas that maybe you've left open for overreach. And then people unknowingly, or maybe whatever's going on with them, they like it. And so now they're overreaching, they're breaking boundaries, personal boundaries of yours. They're basically taking advantage of these breaches in your time, in your values, in your character, and whatever. They're taking advantage of that, some knowingly, some unknowingly, but you need to discern that. And then the last thing, action wise, is notice when you're being indecisive. Begin to notice indecision. Whenever you don't always notice when water is coming into the boat. For real. If you got a big boat, you may not know that there's a lot of water coming on. And then it starts rushing in and flooding in too fast, and it hits a point where you can't recover. So you have to start looking for the early signs of indecision. You have to know what indecision feels like. You have to know what indecision sounds like, uh, you have to detect it. And honestly, you can fail forward. You can say, man, that was not good. I will remember that. I will bookmark that. Right. I'm not going to blame other people. I'm going to just um, grow. I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to forgive. I'm going to move forward. And I'm not going to let myself get in that emotional state again. And I'm going to double down. And I'm going to keep my sense of empowerment, because that's where the real growth and the real change is. So notice indecision, and then use that as opportunity to practice better decision making. Better decision making. Now, let's see what's next. Yeah, absolutely. When you have an ownership mindset, you'll find a way to brave the storms. Think of this. When you have an ownership mindset, another thing we could say is like a where there's a will, there's a way, kind of. It doesn't matter how hard the storm is. It doesn't matter how bad things get. If you have an ownership mindset, it's like that quote, the entire sea, the entire ocean cannot sink a boat unless it starts to get inside of it. And you will be able to find a way to brave the storms. I remember a few years ago, I was experiencing some unprecedented stress, and it was showing up in all these random symptoms in my body. And so it really got me jumpy. I mean, I was super jumpy just because I never knew what it was going to do next. I never knew where it was going to come up next. My wife was joking with me. She's like, there's always something new with you right now, and it would just show up in all these different ways. And I wrote a bunch of blogs on that. So if you are experiencing stress or burnout or discouragement or helplessness, I think that's probably the interior messaging, kind of one of my personal interior motives to help and reach out to you, because I feel like I can relate. And I got just such a good piece of advice, such a good hope word. And the person just said, hey, this is just a season. And you are going to get through this, and this is going to make you stronger. And you are going to help a lot of people. And so that's just been kind of my story here. But I'm just so convinced that, like, the things that would threaten to break you 5 years ago, they don't even phase you today. And so think of it the same way. The things that you feel are like breaking you today, you're going to grow, you're going to learn, um, you're going to expand your horizon, your capability, whatever. And you're going to look back at today, and all the stuff that seems super, super difficult for you, it's not going to be nearly an issue. And you're going to be enlarged, in your carrying capacity. So when you have an ownership mindset, you will always find a way to brave the storms. But without the right mindset, without an ownership mindset, you'll complain about everything. You'll complain even when the sun is shining, because you'll think it's too hot. I mean, if you don't have an ownership mindset, then what you're basically saying is, I don't own any responsibility in this. And so I can blame, I can pivot, I can project, I can, virtue signal, I can misdirect, and everything is going to be a problem. You'll never be happy. You'll never be satisfied like that. Being an owner means that you are willing to pay the price. Being an owner means you are willing to pay the price. Now, here's my big quote, okay? Here's a quote from a guy named Immanuel Kant. He's a philosopher. And it's a little wordy, but I'm gonna just kind of break it down, and we'll kind of walk through it. But he says, laziness and cowardice are the reasons why so great a portion of mankind, after nature has long since discharged them from external direction, nevertheless remains under lifelong tutelage, and why it is so easy for others to set themselves up as their guardians. Woo! Man, that is fire. That is fuego right there. He's basically saying that people are okay with being overpowered and lorded over because of laziness and cowardice. Laziness and cowardice are the reasons that so many people, such a great portion of mankind, even after nature has long discharged them from external direction, meaning they've grown up, like they've had time, they've had years, and they've gone through the parenting phase, they've gone through the teacher phase. Man, you should be old enough. It reminds me of a scripture. It says, move on from the elementary teachings about Jesus Christ. Move on, man, go towards maturity. What are you doing? You should be teaching by now, but you're still, acting like you haven't learned anything. So this is kind of in that same vein. He says, after nature has long discharged them from external direction. Man, that is like one of the pillars of self-leadership thinking, is that we're not just externally motivated, externally obligated to do things, but now we have that desire, we have that internal motivation, and we're becoming self-initiators, self-starters, self-learners, self-leaders. Man, it really is a gift. It's a sign of maturity. He said, nevertheless, they remain under lifelong tutelage, or, oversight, supervision, micromanaging. And what's so crazy about this, what is such an indictment, is he's saying that they actually prefer to be micromanaged. They prefer to be, it says, why they're so easy. This is why it's also so easy for others to set themselves up as their guardians. Crazy. It's so easy not to be of age. It's so easy not to be of age. All right, here's the next part that just got me shouting. If I have, this is what he says. He's describing that kind of thinking. He says, if I have a book which understands for me, a pastor who has a conscience for me, a physician who decides my diet, and so forth, I need not trouble myself. I need not think. If I can only pay, others will easily undertake the irksome work for me. That the step to competence is held to be very dangerous by the far greater portion of mankind. Wow. That is just like such a loaded quote right there. But man, people would be okay. They don't want to take ownership. It's so much easier. If you're going to take ownership, you're going to pay a price to take responsibility of your values, your worldview, your time, your relationships, on and on and on, right? So that way you are being transformed from the inside out. You are going on that necessary, unnoticed preparation process. And when you show up, you're going to show up ready. You're not just going to, rise to the occasion. You want to be able to fall back on your preparation and say, I'm so thankful for the time I was given. I used it wisely, and I'm showing up unashamed. Whatever is in front of me in the future, I'm going to be able to thrive. I'm not going to survive. I'm not going to nosedive. I'm going to step up because I've been putting in the work. And work is not a bad word, y'all. So, okay. But man, that quote was so good. And He said, if I had a book which understands me, a pastor who has a conscience for me, a physician who decides my diet, and so forth, I need not trouble myself. I need not think. If I can only pay. Doesn't that sound like what everybody wants right now? Isn't that like kind of the silver bullet in the leadership space right now? It's just, oh yeah, just automate and delegate, automate and delegate, just pay the automation service, pay, other people to delegate this stuff. I'm telling you, there are things that you would not want to delegate. There are things you don't want to delegate. If you knew how valuable they were to your development, you wouldn't want to delegate it. Never delegate your development. Never delegate your development. There are certain things that you have to take ownership for, certain life lessons, certain life skills that are actually preparing you for the future and that are going to help you thrive in that next phase. So embrace it, learn it, soak it up. Here's a pro tip here at the end. Never delegate your development. Also, never delegate things that are still under development. Never delegate things still under development, particularly your own development. Delegate anything that has already been developed and is now ready to be deployed. Ready to be deployed. So that was for free at the end. Guys, thank you so much for going on this coaching journey. I think that is all that we have for today. That's right. If this was valuable to you, please, would you reciprocate right now? Would you say thank you? Would you give it a thumbs up? Would you subscribe? Please share this with other friends and leaders that want to learn how to lead themselves and stay focused on the future. We show up daily so that way we can add fuel to our focus so we can keep the future on the front burner. And I love these conversations. I need them. I'm not trying to be a teacher only. I want to be a student. I want to stay in this. And I want you to join the Future Friends. Again, there is a gift waiting on you. It is a free fail-proof planning guide. Go ahead and get that. It will help you get started so you can get better. You can download it by clicking the link below. And if for whatever reason you can't find it there, go to peterbirchfield.com and you can get it there as well. Guys, thanks so much. I'm going to roll out with my new little video that I made. A little shorter, but it's got a funky soundtrack I like. Remember, today matters and you're going places in the future. So make today count and prepare to go there. I'll see you tomorrow, guys.